My camera on this phone for taking pictures doesn't look this yellow and jaundiced, but you're gonna have to bear with me. So basically, people are shitting on Jeffree Star for talking about how there's a difference between someone who actually has transgenderism and somebody who's Delulu. That's what he essentially said. And y'all are out here openly having a problem with that. I got Taco Bell. I didn't need to get Taco Bell, and I probably will regret it later, but I got it anyway. So, I'm going to give my 2 cents on the whole transgender thing, if I haven't before. If you want to hate me for that, that is fine. If you unfollow me, unsubscribe, whatever. I don't have that many subscribers or followers anyways, so it's, my personal opinion is I believe transgenderism is a real condition. I believe it is a mental condition. I believe it is a mental health problem. I believe that there is a difference between somebody who is actually suffering with a mental health condition and a health condition in general, and somebody who wants to follow a trend, because unfortunately when it comes to identity politics, gender, femininity, or masculinity, those things unfortunately can be trendy. They can trend. They can become popularized. If you don't believe me, then look at how many young girls are detransitioning because they were given meds and they were given hormones and they were given this and that, and now their voice is deeper than mine for the rest of their life. Some of them are infertile for the rest of their life. Some of them have no tits for the rest of their life because they went to a doctor for help, and that doctor said, "Oh, I'm going to line my pocket with this person's mental illness." In my personal opinion, if you go in for care for transgender or gender affirming care, the first step should be therapy, and they should be looking for signs of anything else first. Not to invalidate what you're feeling, not to tell you, hey, you're wrong, I know better than you. And there's always the option of you getting a second opinion, right? But the reason I say they should be looking for anything else first is because if you don't have gender dysphoria and it's some other identity issue, you don't need gender affirming care. You don't need hormones. You don't need hormone blockers. And those are things that permanently affect your body. You don't need to get a mastectomy. You don't need to get gender reassignment surgery, because those are things that permanently affect your body. And because I've watched people like Buck Angel and watched people like Blair White, I've seen videos of them reacting to TikToks and videos of people getting gender reassignment surgery. And let's just put it this way, when they try to do these surgeries, there are so many complications and so many problems that if you're doing that and you don't genuinely have gender dysphoria, I don't know what's going on in your head, but you do need some kind of fucking help. But yeah, I don't hate people that are transgender, and I don't believe that Jeffree Star does either. Charlie Kirk didn't even hate people that were transgender. He had an entire video he did with somebody named Buck Angel, and if you don't know who that is, I'm going to suggest you look up the Charlie Kirk show episode where it's him and Buck Angel, and I know it was like 3 years ago, but I still suggest you go look it up, because he asked genuine questions to Buck Angel. I'm going to close this and shake it up again because it needs shook up again, but hopefully this lid does not pop off while I do this. I want to say it's on, but maybe it's on now. I'm trying not to wear this. It's the chicken cantina bowl from Taco Bell, and I want it all incorporated. But yeah, I've done videos on a lot of different things in the past. And lately, I've been like delving more into like conservatism and politics. And I don't actually do videos about it. I do TikToks about it, but I don't do YouTube videos about it and long form videos about it because I don't know if anybody cares what I have to say, right? And I know the typical opinion of somebody who is severely on the left and severely liberalized and severely, brainwashed is going to tell me that you're prejudiced, you are racist, you are transphobic, you are this, you are that. I'm not transphobic. I'm stupidity phobic. Let's clear that up. As anybody should fucking be. You should hate stupidity and stuff that doesn't make any sense. And I want to make this clear that these are not thoughts that I just now started to have. It's not because I heard Jeffree Star say it and say, oh, that makes sense. These are thoughts I've already had. Okay? I don't hate people that are transgender because I'm not going to hate somebody for having a mental condition they didn't ask for. But I do think that there is this thing being popularized by pharmaceuticals and doctors who want to line their pockets by any means necessary, who, if someone walks in and says, I think I need gender-affirming care, instead of trying to tell them, let's look into what your actual mental state is, let's look through what maybe some of your traumas are, let's talk about what some things that may be making you feel that way are, let's try and figure out if that is indeed the problem. Because it used to be, when you went to a doctor, regardless of what it was for, they were trying to diagnose you properly. Because there was something called the Hippocratic Oath, and it still exists. But it basically has to do with morals and ethics within Medicare and being given care, so that they're not allowed to screw you over purely to make money, or they're not allowed to do things purely to make money or stroke their own ego, right? They're not allowed to, let's say you go in and you're flatlining, and the person who's charged with saving your life with a defibrillator or an EAD or whatever it is, you're a Kamala supporter and they're a Trump supporter, or vice versa. They're not allowed to let you die if there's a way to save you, just because of your political affiliation. And it's become more common that, and I know that was a very, very, dark place for that to go, but it's become more common that they care more about how much money they can make off of somebody, even if they're diagnosing them improperly and giving them shit they don't need, than actually caring. Because some of these people were 14, 13, 12 years old, going into clinics, doctor's offices, whatever, seeking gender-affirming care, and it was given to them. They get to be about 16, 17, 18, and they realize this is wrong. After they've had a mastectomy. After their parents have signed off on, you can take this and you can take that. You can permanently alter the chemicals in your body. You're going to start growing facial hair. Your voice is going to be deeper. I don't know exactly the effects that on the other side. I don't know what happens to a guy. I don't know if hormones make his voice more feminine. I don't know if they change his, if someone's young enough, it's obviously going to change if they're going to grow into, a certain height or be a certain weight or have a certain muscle mass, right? It's going to affect that. But I don't know. The thing is, there's another thought I have about this, but that's for later on in the video. I personally think, like I was saying, that they need to be trying to diagnose you with literally anything else first, before they start doing something that physically affects you permanently, that sterilizes you possibly, that is, a mastectomy, where you get all of the stuff removed and you can't take that back, where your voice is deepened, or whatever happens to guys, that's probably permanent. They need to be trying to diagnose you with anything else, not to invalidate your concerns, not to not listen to you, but to make sure that when you get this care, that it's actually what you have wrong with you, that it's actually what's going on, that you're actually suffering with gender dysphoria. There needs to be way more testing, there needs to be way more therapy, there needs to be way more ways to decipher one from the other, because some people have identity disorders that are not gender dysphoria, but because they have seen transgender this and transgender that all over their TVs and YouTube and TikTok and everything. They assume that that's what's going on with them. And if they're a young impressionable person, that's not their fault. Because everybody has impressions made on them especially when they're younger, by the world around them. It even happens to older people, but usually when you're younger and you're getting stuff here and stuff here and stuff here and in your ears and you're seeing things and you're taking it in and you're just kind of absorbing everything, and your brain is going to come to a conclusion. And it's not always going to be the right conclusion, especially if you're younger and you haven't lived for that long. And there's nothing wrong with admitting that to yourself. If you are younger and somebody tells you, can we please make sure that you actually have this before we do permanent irreparable damage to your body, don't take it as an insult. Don't take it as somebody trying to keep you from what you think is what you need. Take it as somebody caring enough, whether that be a doctor, a therapist, a parent, a guardian. Take that as somebody giving a fuck enough about you to want you to be on the right track, instead of 5 years down the line, you're like, oh, I've done permanent irreparable damage to my body, possibly sterilized myself, and I don't even think that's what's wrong with me anymore. But I do think that Jeffree Star has respect for actual trans people. I saw a video now I know I'm jumping around a lot, but I saw a video where somebody was criticizing Jeffree Star for at one point being friends with Nikita Dragun, or being in a car with her, and saying how brave it was that they were living their truth and all that, but now he's supposedly transphobic because he doesn't think that people should be able to just identify how they want. I'm sorry, but if you are a man biologically and you still have like facial hair and you're just wearing little girls' clothes, I'm going to think you're a creep. I'm not going to think you're transgender, because guess what? Women don't have facial hair generally. If they do, they shave it off because they don't want to look like a man. There's nothing wrong with having facial hair. If it's a health condition, people understand those happen. But what I'm saying is, if you're a man and you have a full fucking beard and chest hair, but you're wearing camisoles and little tiny dresses, and you're, trying to convince people that you want to be a woman, that you want to pass as a woman and be observed in the world as a woman, because that's what eases your brain trauma, no one's going to fucking believe you. You are Lily Tino 2.0. Do I think you need mental health services? Yes. Do I think you need a diagnosis? Yes. Do I think you need therapy, doctor's help, and to figure out what's actually going on? Abso-fucking-lutely. But you should have never been put on hormones if you were. You should have never been given the diagnosis of transgender if you were. And that brings me to another topic. Because there is a difference between somebody who's transgender, aka transsexual, and somebody who's delusional, or misdiagnosed, or the doctors that were supposed to treat them didn't do their job well enough. And if you are someone who's under the age of 18 and your parents left this happen to you, and now you're 18, you should be allowed to sue your parents. Because your parents were not watching over you well enough to make sure that a doctor did their job properly. They should have been there with you at the doctor's appointment. They should have been there when the doctor prescribed any kind of injections, any kind of pills, any kind of anything. And they should have been vying and petitioning for your safety and actual well-being, instead of just trying to seek treatment so you would shut up, which is what I believe 95% of these parents do now. Especially the ones that are like, oh, my kid's trans, just give him medicine, blah, blah, blah. My next point, and this one may get me hate, and if it does, I completely understand. And this is, again, not me trying to invalidate anyone, not me trying to hate on anyone, not me trying to say anything against actual people who suffer with gender dysphoria. And I believe that if you suffer with gender dysphoria, you're actually transgender/transsexual. If you do not, you are not. That is not the diagnosis you need, but you probably do need some kind of diagnosis and treatment. Okay, I'm not trying to say that you don't deserve to have your health examined. I'm not trying to say that you don't deserve to seek care. I'm not trying to say that you don't deserve to be treated with respect, okay? Whether you are or aren't transsexual, transgender, whatever, you're a human being and you deserve respect. But in that, it is not respectful to give somebody treatment for something they're not actually suffering from. Is it? It's not respectful to look at somebody, lie to their face, and say, yeah, this is going to line my pocket, so I'm going to diagnose you with this because I'm going to get money and a bonus and, commission for giving you these drugs. That's not respecting you. I respect you more than the doctor that lied to your face and told you, here's medicine you need when you don't need it. So before you send me hate or call me transphobic, I just want you to realize that. But my next point is, I remember back in the day, and I don't know if this study still stands, I'm pretty sure it still does, but someone who has gender dysphoria, I believe it is that a man's brain functions more in the way and has brain waves more like a woman. And in a biological woman's brain, somebody who has gender dysphoria, their brain functions and reacts more like a man's brain. So, if you notice the people that are not actually trans but trans-identifying, that tend to go a little woohoo, I just want to let that sit there for a second, right? And I'm not saying this, I'm not saying this to say that they don't deserve respect, they don't deserve I'm not saying that. They deserve to have what's actually wrong with them treated instead of something that's not actually wrong with them. They deserve honesty from their physicians. They deserve honesty from the people in their lives. This is getting cold, so I'm going to take another bite of it before I continue. Also, I want to add before I say this next part, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a physician, this is a hypothesis, and I don't hate anyone. This popped into my head, and I don't even know if I'm going to be able to word this right to make it seem respectful, because I don't mean any disrespect by what I'm about to say. But imagine somebody who has actual gender dysphoria. They have that misalignment in their brain, and they take estrogen if they're male to female, and they take testosterone if they're female to male, and it does something to ease that in their brain. Like, I don't know if that's the case. I'm hypothesizing, right? It does something to ease that, right? It does something to... Okay, so that they feel more at ease, they feel more like a man, or they feel more like a woman. So they aren't as sad, depressed, whatever. Now imagine somebody that doesn't have that brain misalignment because they don't actually have gender dysphoria. And you're pumping them full of the opposite hormone. But because they don't have that, their brain and their body doesn't need that. Not only does it not need that, this is a hypothesis, I am not a fucking doctor, before you flip out on me in the fucking comments if you are a doctor, or if you know a little bit more about that than me, okay? This is a hypothesis, and a curiosity, and a thought that popped into my head. And I want to also preface this by saying I am a little bit of a conspiracy theorist, but I also don't conspiracy theorize everything. So, this is a hypothesis and a thought I had, but it's not a conspiracy theory, and it's not me trying to say, oh, well, this is the case, so people shouldn't be given this care. Okay, that's not what I'm saying. If somebody doesn't have that misalignment, but they're going and getting extra testosterone injected into them, because I'm pretty sure men and women have both, right? But women have more of the estrogen and men have more of the testosterone. Now imagine that person doesn't have that brain misalignment. They don't have that identity disorder. So they go and get these things injected into them. Imagine it starts to mess with their brain in a different way that's negative. Could that be why some people who aren't actually gender dysphoric go nuts? That's the only way I can say it. It's the only way that I can say it. Could that be something that goes into their body doesn't need it, their body isn't, so their body is like, whoa, that's too much testosterone, or whoa, that's too much estrogen, and it makes them go a little nuts. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to make fun of anybody's mental health by using words like crazy or nuts or insane. It's the only thing that I can think of to get what I'm saying across. This is a hypothetical. I am not a doctor, so you can completely disregard this. Because no one's going to listen to me anyway. I don't have a large following, first of all. Second of all, it was a thought. It was a curiosity. It was a what if. Okay? A completely and totally what if. And I could be wrong. But if that is the case, what happens if, okay, say like 10 years down the line, they find out that that is the case. And that's why all these people who weren't actually transgender but weren't properly diagnosed, because the medical system was more concerned with lining doctors' pockets than it was for getting actual fucking care, because the care that they actually needed didn't give the doctors as much money as trans care does. So they had hormones injected into them and thrown at their body, and their body went, whoa, what the fuck? And their mental state ended up even worse off than it was before. Again, this is hypothetical because I'm not a doctor. And I could be completely and totally wrong. So you can disregard what I'm saying. You don't have to come at me with hate. You don't have to come at me with, you're a piece of shit. You don't have to come at me and tell me I'm transphobic. Because again, I'm not disputing that people out there have gender dysphoria and deserve treatment and deserve respect and deserve to live a life that is free of, pain and anguish and emotional anguish and sometimes suicidal ideation, because I realize mental illness is not fun. I don't have gender dysphoria, but I have depression, I have anxiety. I have a lot of dark fucking thoughts that come after me. So I understand it's not fun. So I would never sit here and dream of telling somebody they don't deserve treatment or they shouldn't seek treatment or that they shouldn't have access to it. What I'm saying is that if somebody doesn't actually have gender dysphoria, that needs to be made certain. If they have gender dysphoria, it needs to be made certain, so that when they get treatment, whatever treatment they decide on, whatever treatment their doctor decides on, it's the right fucking treatment, so that they're not being given stuff, 1, that they don't need, 2, in this case, stuff that can permanently alter their body, and 3, sometimes sterilize them, that they cannot take back. But the other part of my sentiment was, what if, in a hypothetical sense, if somebody doesn't have that misalignment of brain chemistry and they get extra estrogen pumped into them or they get extra testosterone, is there a negative effect of it making, a problem where there wasn't one? Because again, you can have an identity disorder that isn't gender related, and you can assume that it's gender orientated when it's not. So that's why I said when somebody goes to seek this treatment, they need to be trying to diagnose them with anything else first, before giving them something that is so permanent and so life-altering as far as treatment goes. And again, this is for me watching actual trans creators and seeing what all they have to go through to become the identity that they feel they should be and that makes them most comfortable and feel best in the world and the life and the body that they live in. Again, I'm not a doctor. Please don't come at me with hate. I don't mean it in disrespect. And I don't mean to sound stupid either. These things that I'm saying are like hypothetical. Have a nice day.